this is module number 7 of 11. Let's talk about tree wrap. And I mean wrap with a W-R-A-P. For this section, make sure you refer to Garden Notes number 653. So why do we use tree wrap? Well, we're using it to help protect our thin-barked trees against sun scald and frost cracks during the late fall and winter. Both of these are temperature related, and it's surprising how this thin, crepe paper-like wrap can actually prevent these two things from happening. Sun scald is also called southwest injury, and it's most prevalent on young, thin-barked trees. It's called southwest injury because it occurs on the south or the southwest side of the tree. What happens is during the winter months, the south side of the tree tends to warm up because the sun's angle is lower, and it causes the cells within the tree to wake up and start moving water and nutrients up and down the cambium and through the phloem. But then at night, when our temperatures drop and we get below freezing, those active cells which are filled with water burst, causing the bark to split. This is a classic example of sun scald, and this was my unfortunate little linden that I had planted in the landscape, and there were so many things wrong with this linden that sun scald was the least of its concerns. But again, you can see how a young tree can be affected by sun scald, and it can basically cause the bark to almost explode off the tree. Now, the tree, in some cases, can recover, but with an injury this severe, this would have been a death sentence for this linden, and it was removed for other reasons. Frost cracks are also temperature related, but they're vertical cracks, and they can extend from anywhere from a half an inch to even longer vertically in the trunk or the stem of the tree. And again, it's very similar to sun scald, where it's a temperature issue. So on warm winter days, the bark warms up and causes those cells to expand. And then as the sun sets, the outside of the bark stays cold, but the inside is still warmed. And then this contraction causes the bark to make these frost cracks. Again, young trees are most susceptible, and we tend to see this again on the south or the southwest side of the tree. And this is an example of a frost crack. This is a pretty severe frost crack. A lot of times you'll just see very small frost cracks in the trunk, and again, it's due to the expansion and contraction during warm and cold during the winter months. There are some rules for tree wrap. So the first thing is that the tree really only needs to be wrapped for the first maybe 2 or 3 years of its life in the landscape. So it doesn't have to be a permanent thing that you do every fall. The second thing is you're going to put it on around Thanksgiving, so late November, and it does need to be removed every year and aim for somewhere in mid-April. So I always say put it on at Thanksgiving, after you've gorged yourself and you need some form of exercise, and then take it off on tax day, which is April 15th. It's recommended that you only use the light-colored crepe paper type wrap. You can get tree wrap at most garden stores, box stores, any of those. And what you do is you start wrapping at the base, moving up the tree and overlapping by about 1/3 until you reach the first branch. The other thing that tree wrap does that I failed to mention is that it does help prevent against browsing injury from rabbits, deer, elk, etc. This is what tree wrap looks like in action. So again, we're starting at the base of the tree. We're overlapping by about 1/3 at each turn, and we're wrapping all the way to the first branch. Once you get to that first branch, you'll cut the tree wrap and then either tape it or secure it in some way to the tree, remembering that we're only leaving it on for a few months. Sometimes you might get asked about painting the trunk. This is what's done in orchards. Well, can't I just put white paint on the trunk of the tree? And you can, that's totally fine. But really in the landscape, it's not going to be the most aesthetically pleasing aspect. It does last a lot longer. It's more permanent. And if you do use paint, make sure you're using a diluted latex water-based paint. Orchards will do this because they often have hundreds or thousands of trees, that they need to protect from sun scald and frost cracks. And they also do it because during the summer months, that white is helping reflect sunburn so that their fruit doesn't get damaged. So painting the trunk is an option, but it's probably not necessary for most homeowners. Remember this with tree wrap, it's only seasonal, so it only needs to be on from late November through mid-April, and it only needs to be done for the first 2 or 3 years of the tree's life in the landscape. After the bark has hardened or thickened or becomes a little bit more textured, you don't need to wrap the tree anymore. It's just something we do on young, thin bark trees. And again, make sure to take it off because if you leave it on, it can lead to girdling. It can lead to increased insect activity, which I've seen. Earwigs love to hang out underneath tree wrap, and it could lead to disease pressure as well. Coming up in the next module, we'll talk about trees and turf and if there's a way to manage both of these ecosystems in our landscapes.